everybody, Caleb here, and today I am rejoined by Troy, and he's brought a guitar to get a little bit of work on. This is a Washburn, and then a bunch of letters. I'm not going to try to read them out. Troy, where did you get this one?
So, helping a buddy move last week, and came across it and his stuff, and he hadn't played in a while, so I was like, well, we can get it set up, cleaned up for you, and hopefully get you kick-started, back into playing again. And Caleb needed content, so
here we are. So I think this is going to be a lot of mostly me talking, but I think Troy's going to be doing a lot of the work. I know he wants to kind of know everything there is to do here, or what needs to be done. And I think I want to focus on like I have this old guitar and I want to be able to play again. I want to make sure everything's right. So I think that's kind of what we're going to focus on here. I know this thing needs a little bit of cleaning up. I don't know how well you all can see it. It doesn't seem to show up on camera very much, but it's a little dirty. The strings are real old. So we're going to get this thing up in good playing condition. I'm going to go ahead and point the camera down and we can get started on really inspecting this thing. So the first thing we're going to do is check the string height. And we're going to use the taper gauge I always use. It measures in tens of thousands of inches. If you didn't live in the US, I'm pretty sure they make them in metric as well. But because what I'm used to, and actually what Troy's used to at this point, is thousands of inches. That's the easiest way to do it.
Metric is garbage.
Like I say, if you're looking for a metric, it's about less than a kilometer. So go ahead and stick her in there. And what I'll do is I'll just tap the string so you can kind of hear when it no longer, see, right as soon as it hits, it stops. So we're at about, it's a little shy of 110 thousandths on the bass side. So it's a little high. I could tell that by looking at it, so now to do the treble. I'll go ahead and do the tappy taps.
It's so hard for me to tell.
There.
So it's a little over
about 105, I'd say. Right there, that half mark. About 105 thousandths on the treble side, so 110, 105. We're almost probably the same amount too high on both sides. That's good, I think. That means I have to take the same amount off the whole side of the saddle. That'll mean that I'll have to take 10, 20, 40 thousandths off the saddle, because you double what you want to lower at the 12, and that's what you take off the saddle. So if I want to come down by 20 thousandths at the 12th fret, I have to double that, 40 thousandths off the bottom of the saddle. That saddle's looking a little low. I think we're going to be able to get it done. It's just a little low. All right, next thing, let's check the nut height real quick. If you'll grab the pick over there that says 17. One of them says 10. Okay, 17. So that's the 17 thousandths pick. And so you can slide that in on the first fret, and it should have some resistance. And not really. I can kind of hear it catching, so it's close.
That one has some on them.
So that makes me think the nut is probably pretty close to being good.
There's not much on the bass side.
Once we lower the saddle, it'll probably be just about perfect. We'll check that again after we lower the saddle, but for right now, I think that's actually doing pretty good. The 17 thousandths is what I'll check when there's nothing else going on. If the saddle were crazy, crazy high, I could put a capo on and we'd check, with a capo on the 3rd fret, we'd check the 1st fret at 10 thousandths. So it'd be a little bit lower because it's sitting on the 2nd fret that way. Anyways, that's getting more complicated than I want to get. So I think we've done everything we want to do with the strings on it.
Okay.
It's about 20 thousandths too high, and the saddle's probably, or the nut's looking pretty good. So I think we can go ahead and take the strings off of it. You can't see it on camera, but I'm pulling the pins out, and I'm going to keep them in order. Once again, sometimes it helps, and when you don't know if it's going to, it's better to just be safe. It doesn't take that much time. So now that we got that off of there, I'm going to look at the straightness on the neck. If you'll pull out that straight edge there, the notched one, and set that on the fretboard, it starts at the 2nd fret. You just have to guess.
What is the difference between the sides?
It's scale length.
Oh.
It starts at the 2nd fret.
The other one?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that looks a little better. So then what we can do is just kind of look underneath it, and if we get a lot of light in the middle, and actually it looks straight, like really, really straight. So you see there's no gaps in here. Mm-hmm. If there were, that would mean it would need tightened. And if we're getting a lot of gaps on the end, it's over tightened, but actually it's not terrible. It's probably just a hair on the over tightened side, but really it's good. So we don't need to do anything with the truss rod. That's good. I'll do a quick check to make sure the frets are level. So we can do that with this. You know how that works?
Nope.
So you stick it on the first 3 frets, the longest side.
Doesn't matter.
It'll get shorter so we can stay on 3 frets at a time. And then try to rock it on that middle fret. And if it won't, then you don't have a high fret. So then move across the fret as well. So we get, all the way across where all the strings were. And if it's solid, then we're doing good. And then you just move up to the next 3. See, that fret's a little high. Yep. Kind of high.
Yeah. So, I think that's where we're getting the buzz earlier, too.
Yeah, so we keep going up the board. A little high there.
That one's real high. That right here.
Yeah, we're going to have to level the frets.
And then...
Yeah, when you start running out of room or start running into other frets, then you can change sides.
Yeah. Yeah, there are just some that are...
Just a little high. Mm-hmm. Yep. I wouldn't be too surprised if they weren't always that way. Because those frets don't look super worn. They just... Chinese quality control can be some of the problem.
So do you spot do it, or do you do
I'll do the whole thing. Especially because we have quite a few. I'll probably do this. The reason I'm going to do this and not going to have Troy do this is because the way that I do this is a lot faster than using like sandpaper on a level, which would get you done and fairly low risk, but I'm going to use my usual file, and you can file through frets really quickly and suddenly have very little fret left. I really like doing it this way. It really speeds me up, and that means I spend less money of whoever's guitar I'm working on it, which means I get to do more stuff faster as well. But you can really easily screw this part up with higher abrasive tools. You can probably see I'm hitting high spots. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, like, so most of our high frets were in like this area, but I can't just hit this area. I have to make the whole board match if I'm gonna do, more than one fret. So that's where I'm focusing down here, but I have to take it up. You can actually feel pretty well the high frets with the file. Like it drags or it really stops when you hit the high frets. It's really hard to explain unless you've done it a few times. But I don't recommend doing your first time with a file on a guitar you really, really, really need to turn out good. I do recommend if you're gonna, get used to using the file, use something really cheap. I can guarantee you my very first fret job was not great with the file. But once you've done it a few times, you really get the idea of what needs to be done. So we're gonna crown the frets now because I filed them on the top. That put a nice flat spot on the top, and we don't want that because you get string buzzes doing that. You want a peak, and this has a nice round file on it, so it'll put that nice round, even peak on there. So basically, try to keep it straight It doesn't take much. And because I barely hit these, it's really not going to take much.
Okay.
Because you don't want to take anything off of the peak, right? You just want to round off the edges.
Okay.
If you were really unsure about this, what you could do is Sharpie them. A lot of people put Sharpie across the fret, and then they'll do a little bit of crowning. You know, then you can see that line get smaller and smaller, so it becomes that really tiny edge. You can also see that really well off of the shininess of it. You can kind of see the shiny flat spot, and as you crown, it goes away. As well, this file was actually modified. Jerry Rosa ground the edges off of it so it doesn't sit down quite as far, so you're less likely to end up scratching the fretboard with it. I think that helps a ton, actually.
I feel like I'm not going far enough. That one's still got a pretty big flat spot on top, yeah.
Well, now I hit that one harder, so you're going to have to hit that one harder.
And, like, what do you think about that guy?
That's not bad. That's probably perfect.
Okay.
The ones I hit, the high ones are the ones that you're really going to have to hit harder. But we don't want to take any height off of them because then they're going to be low. If we take too much off, you're going to have low frets, which means your other frets are going to be high and you're going to get buzzing off of them. And when you're done with that one, you'll move the neck rest out of the way.
No, I'd like to hit it.
I have some very opinions about these neck rests. I get it, and I like being able to not put the pressure on the headstock, but it is always in the way.
I lost which one I was on.
I've skipped frets before, and they'll let you know.
Huh?
I've skipped frets before, and the comments will let you know. Oh, you missed the 9th fret. What? Oh, I did. So, now that we're done crowning the frets, and this needed done before we even started crowning the frets, they are a touch grimy, and definitely not very high polished, which we're going to do now. To take the file marks out, I typically start with 600. Here you go. We'll do 1200 after that, and the micro polishing pads after that. Don't worry about it. We're going to clean the fretboard off. Okay. So I would just...
You'd go...
That's the fastest way to do it.
You go opposite?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
You can do kind of swirls. It's fairly inconsequential. Okay. And when you're gonna clean the board anyway, I don't worry about the board at all. It's so much faster to not worry about it when you know you're gonna clean it.
Okay.
So, you did 600. That pretty much takes the file marks out. We're going to do 1200 now. And this is where they really start to get shiny. And if we were doing a mandolin, we'd stop after 1200. There's no point in going any further. It's a string bending thing. You know, when you bend your strings, you can go ahead and get started. When you bend the strings, you really notice the polish. Basically the only time you do. But on a mandolin, you don't bend them. You know, you try not to because they're going to go out of tune of each other. And so you really don't notice. It's strange. And I think a lot of people don't realize how different polishing mandolin frets to polishing guitar frets is. The different needs. Twelve strings aren't a whole lot different, although I would probably still polish them a little higher. So that actually, you start to see they're really starting to get a shine on there. If you move, the light moves with it. It's not dull. But we're going to take it further than that. We're going to use the micro polishing pads, and they're all numbered. You can see they're tally marked.
So high is...
We're starting with 1, and we go to 6. Either side, they're the same.
Okay.
And it's basically the same thing as the sandpaper. Okay, so now that the frets are all polished, we're going to clean the fretboard. Probably gonna remove this down a little bit.
Yeah.
This is a brand new razor blade. I just took the paper off of it. You want me to show you?
I mean, vertically, side to side?
Yeah. You probably want to take, you don't have to use both hands, but here, I'll do the first one. So it's just.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, you probably need to finish that up. And you work your way across. You don't want to flatten the board. It does not take much. That's probably good. And that needed done before we even started polishing. There was enough grime on there that it was like, all right, fretboard needs to be cleaned. The other thing it needs is oiled. It was looking very dry. I am currently shaking up the oil. So now that fretboard's cleaned up, and even before it was cleaned up, it really, really needed oiled. It looks very dry. We're going to use the Be Good Wood Oil. Take this on here, and just leave it. It's fine. Just do a bead down, just like.
Well, because I'm left-handed, I'm going to do it this way.
Because you're wrong. That's good. Then take that cloth and rub it in. You don't have to use a cloth. You can use your fingers. But because Troy's already got it out, I'll let him do it. Save you from getting quite so oily.
It's not even that oily. It's past noon.
And then suddenly it looks like a brand new board. All right, take a dry one and clean it off. Wipe any excess off. I'm going to actually take this one and do the bridge real quick. You can do all your raw wood surfaces with this oil. So basically just the fretboard and the bridge. And it really does clean up the look. Like that fretboard looks brand new.
Yeah, I can, even in the camera, it's like...
That is a night and day difference from when it got here. I think the next thing we're going to do is actually do some cleanup. Show the headstock. It's pretty dusty. And it doesn't play bass. So I'm going to get some clean water out and we'll just do some light rubbing it down. The body's pretty grimy as well. We'll clean it up. I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera. There's not a whole lot to show. Lightly soapy water and make sure to dry everything off. You don't want to leave water on your finish. So we cleaned this up and it's looking a lot better. Will you show the headstock? Somebody along the way has over tightened the tuners and it's really started to bust the finish, and that's a real shame. I almost wouldn't doubt if it was done when it was being built. It's a shame, but it's the way it is, so there's nothing really we can do about it. And because we're really just trying to set this thing up, I'm not going to worry about it too much. In the same vein, there's a crack, and not so much a crack, a ding in the finish, which is still not on camera, here. And I'm not going to worry about it too much. I took some really high grit sandpaper and just tried to smooth it out before I went and buffed it. And that way it's less likely to catch on stuff and cause bigger problems down the road. It's fine. It's not great. I wouldn't prefer it, but it's not going to be an issue. So what we're going to do now is check neck angle. So take the big long straight edge and we'll run that down the neck while we know the neck is straight. And basically run it into the bridge. And it does actually clear the bridge in most spots. It's not great. Make sure you're touching on the back.
Touching on the...
I mean, just like down against the fret, the back fret, first fret. Because it's probably going to rock up in here.
Yeah, it does.
Right, we have to base it off of the first fret, basically basing it off the nut. And it does clear it like 99% of the way, which is better than not clearing it. However, I would really like if it cleared it by a little bit more. I'm not going to complain. It's not terrible. I wish it were better. That's pretty much all I can say about it. Will you let me see that? It's got a little bit of belly bulge to it. It's not crazy. Well, there's quite a bit more radius behind the bridge than there is in front of the bridge, if that says anything.
Doesn't say anything, though.
Not in English. because I looked at that, and now because I'm thinking about it, I'm going to check the inside real quick. I don't see anything broken, and nothing looks incredibly loose. I'm going to stick my hand in there for a minute. The bridge plate is a little thin, maybe. But the braces are not. They're rosy-cheeked and robust. So I guess we're going to do fine. It's not preferable. I wish it were a little lower. But for the time we're spending on this, that's sufficient. So while it's taken apart, before we put new strings on it, we may as well take some height off the saddle. I'll move the camera around and get the guitar out of the way so we can actually look at doing that. So we got the saddle out, and we did decide we were 20 thousandths too high at the 12th fret, which means we have to double it on the saddle. We're going to take 40 thousandths off the saddle. So first thing I would do is take your Sharpie there. Mark up both ends, just like little marks on both ends, kind of underneath.
On the bottom of the sides.
Just like this. So the other side.
That's a big old mark.
Yeah, well, you're not going to see it. That's how it's in there pretty deep. So we want to take 40 thousandths off, so I'm going to get that on the calipers, which is going to be loads of fun. Not 41, not 40 and a half. 40. So then you can scratch that on there. Set the bottom lip on the bottom, and then just scratch a line out to the side. You dang lefty. If you do it over the black, you can see the line easier.
What do you mean if I do it over the black?
Where we colored in the Sharpie.
Yeah. It's quite a bit, actually, that we're taking off.
Yeah. Caleb, try. Yeah, you can see it. I couldn't see it from over there.
I can see it.
Yeah. And then just... Whoop. See, that's... It doesn't look right.
Because mine's better than yours.
Yeah, it is. And I was worried about yours.
Haha. Here, do you need to start over?
No.
I'll give you the Sharpie so you can start over.
It's good.
It's okay.
It's good
It's okay. I do your job better than you.
Yeah, well, I guess you can take over. Congratulations. This is no longer my channel. It's still Mills Guitars, but it's with Troy.
Mills Guitars, but with Burris.
So now we've got lines on there. Yeah, you can see them. Don't look at that one. Well, you're going to take this over to the disc sander and knock it off up to that line. That's going to leave the saddle fairly low, and I'm not real happy about it, but it's not going to be so low that it's unplayable. So this is the easiest way to do it, and for a guitar like this, in this condition, at this value, this is probably the best fix. So I said that these bridge pins don't have any angle on them, and now I'm going to show you what I mean by that. They're totally flat on the bottom, which sometimes will cause problems with the pin sitting on the bottom of the pin. No, not the pin. The ball end of the string sitting on the end of the pin as it goes into the hole, and it really needs to kind of fall up and aside so it's sitting against the bridge plate. So what we'll do to assist that is work an angle on the end there. You can see it's starting there, and that way that slope will not catch the ball end. It'll just fall off and go where it needs to go. So you can do that. This is one of those little things that most of the time you'll probably never notice because you're not changing strings every day. But when it is helpful, it's world changing.
You're not changing strings every day, or if you're me, ever.
Yeah, that's true. Some people, will never notice that I do this because they'll never change their strings. But since I'm about to put strings on it, I like it. It's worth spending the little bit of time on. It doesn't take long.
How big of an angle are you putting on there?
About like that.
So I need to go more aggressive.
And now that I have two people, this goes a lot faster.
So you realize I've been sitting on this one forever.
All Right now is about the time where we go, didn't we have 6 pins? The last time I went and bought pins, they actually came with the angle already in them, which was nice. They're starting to catch on that it's a good feature.
Are we putting these back in order yet?
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
You and I have been alternating. It's been working fairly well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. We do still have them all. After this, I think we're ready to string this up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I'll go get some strings ready. So, what did we just do? We just took the saddle down, and the pins all have angles on them to help hold the ball in the right spot. So we're ready for strings. So I'll put that saddle back in there. It's sitting low, but not crazy low. I've definitely seen lower. I think Troy's going to lube the nut.
Should I just
use
run on the
a
graphite?
little bit of graphite. Use it in the nut slots.
So
just kind of like draw inside. Yeah.
Oops.
It's fine. You can do this, and that way your strings are less likely to catch, especially with these, probably machine cut. They're not always perfect. I do have strings out. I'm going to be using they're EJ16s from D'Addario. I remember hearing exactly how it's supposed to be said, and I never remember what it is. Well, no, there's there's a video out there, the guy who's either in charge of the company or almost in charge of the company, and he says it, and that means that's the right way. Anyways, they're light strings, they're light gauge, they're not, so it'll be 12 to something. Does it even say on here? It sure doesn't.
Doesn't say anything, you have to read it.
They're lights, they're 12 to something, something, something. So the highest string is going to be 12 gauge. I typically use that for all acoustics at this point, unless it's, built either really heavy or it's really not built all that well. Then I'll go lighter, but I really wouldn't recommend going any heavier because the older they get, the less they hold, the more likely that your strings are going to win the battle of the bridge and the strings. I'm doing the easy part.
And I'm doing the winding.
Do you want me to do it?
No.
Because I can do it pretty quick. The bass strings anyways.
You realize how little experience I have doing this, and I've played guitar as long as you?
Yeah, I know. See, that's not what I would do.
What'd you do?
So, bass strings are easy. You go around the post just the single time. Stick it through. And pull it tight. As tight as you can get it. And then, once you're in there, just a few turns, and you're building tension. Bass strings are easy, they don't slip. Treble strings are a bit of a pain. I don't often wind strings on video, but because I'm doing it, I'm gonna give my few helpful hints. Make sure you're winding down the post when you're doing your windings. You want the string to leave at the lowest point on your winding. If you're going hot up, you're putting more leverage on the post. And you don't want that. You're more likely to break something. This might be the fastest restring I've done in a while. Is it time to aim for the world record?
No.
There's a guy in Kansas.
Really?
Yeah. It's something stupid though, like a string every couple of seconds.
Why do you care that much?
For the world's fastest restring.
Yeah, the world's worst task. Arguably the worst part about playing guitar. like the worst part of playing piano is getting it tuned.
Getting it tuned. The thing though about guitar is, please do not pay somebody to restring your guitar. Just learn how. It's not fun, but it is not $40, you know?
You know, my biggest fear is a string breaking and it popping back and hitting me in the eye.
Me too. It's right up there with shoving one really deep into my finger.
I'd rather that than have one cut my eyeball.
That's true. Yeah, because then you're like, all right, well, I can't see anymore. I guess I'm done playing guitar.
Yes.
Time to find a new career path. Those shop guys who are missing a few fingers, you know?
Yes, I've worked in a machine shop, so I've heard some of those stories.
It's the same thing, but you're a luthier who's just got 2 eye patches on from string breaks. All right, we're gonna go tune this guitar, and then we'll come back and do some last measurements. So, I think we got this thing better. It's definitely way cleaner. The frets are now polished. We got rid of the high fret. There was definitely no buzzing while we were warming up, getting this all tuned up, making sure the strings were nice and stretched. Basically, the only thing left to do at this point is to do this, and actually, it's not as bad as I thought it was. It's 95 or so on that bass string, which is maybe a hair high, but considering what the bridge is like, you couldn't ask for much more. And we're sitting about 90 thousandths or so on that treble string, which is a little high, but considering how low the saddle is, we couldn't ask for much more. I'm pretty happy with it. I think it's going to be fine for what it is. If I had 2 more weeks and $400 more, we might try to do something different. But for a quick day setup and, something that basically there's nothing we did that nobody else could do. You could do all this on your own for the most part. Mm-hmm. If you didn't have this, you could stack feeler gauges, and that would be another way to quickly check action, because you know how thick feeler gauges are, because this is kind of expensive. Beyond that, specialty tools. Instead of the file, you could have used sandpaper on a level. The crowning file, you're kind of out of luck. If you need it, you need it. Beyond that, we didn't really use anything specialty. Everything was done fairly easily. I don't see that there's anything you couldn't do on your own. I think we're ready to go play this thing now. I didn't check the intonation on this, and I still haven't. I'm assuming that it's okay. It wasn't really on the list of things to worry about, and considering it's to help somebody get back into playing, I'm not super concerned about it. It's not going to be a, I'm going to go gigging this weekend kind of guitar. So I'm not super worried about the intonation. I'll probably take a look at it a little bit later, but it's probably fine. I think we're going to go get set up to play. So, yeah, here we go. So we got this thing all set up, and Troy, how's it playing?
Pretty good.
Good. Pretty good is pretty good. It looks a lot better, actually. When I first saw it, I was thinking that fretboard looked dry. And it's looking so much better now. Nice and shiny. Should be playing real good for somebody to get started on. We did a little bit of playing. I'll probably close out the video on that as soon as we're done here. We played these things. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed this little video of maybe sort of some things, you could do to get an old guitar back in playing if you wanted to pick it up. So I guess here's me and Troy playing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.